My name is Wade Holmes, and I'm a solutions manager within Google Cloud that is focused on Google Cloud's VMware as a Service solution, the Google VMware Engine. And today we're going to be talking about how you can build, modernize, and scale your business with Google's VMware Engine. So I recently joined Google Cloud. I previously was with VMware for about 10 years. And in that time, I originally was one of the first VMware certified design experts in the world. And I'm very excited to be bringing to market this new solution that allows for Google Cloud to provide a place for VMware solutions to be easily migrated and easily hosted within Google Cloud. So no presentation is complete without a Gartner quote. And Gartner stated that by 2025, 80% of enterprises will have shut down a traditional data center versus 10% today. But why, if there's this aggressive move for cloud migration and cloud modernization, and every enterprise is looking at a cloud journey, is it only 10%? There are a number of challenges that occur when enterprises look at their cloud journey, and these challenges start with the applications. Enterprises have opaque applications. They don't understand their environment. They don't understand what is there and how they can migrate. They may have incompatible applications. They may have staff that are no longer around to manage the applications and perform a proper application discovery. And as you look at VMware environments that exist in almost all of the Fortune 1000, this is a challenge as you look at going down their cloud migration journey and cloud modernization journey. There are also challenges with operations. They want to be able to maintain the same posture at time and not be forced to retool their workforce. There's going to be a potential gap in skills. They'll have to potentially re-architecture their whole operational model. And this is something that as organizations look at trying to maintain their business and trying to maintain a competitive advantage, they can't dedicate this time to as part of their cloud migration journey. They're concerned with different network models and security mechanisms. They have to maintain the same security posture and have to figure out a way to easily do this. And of course, they have to maintain the same audit and compliance and compatibility posture as they move to a cloud solution. So all of these are reasons why Google realizes that customers need to be able to have options, and Google Cloud wants to be able to meet customers where they are in their cloud journey. If you're a customer that is ready to move towards cloud native right away, we of course have Google Kubernetes engine and being able to utilize Anthos to improve and move immediately in your cloud journey. We have Google Compute Engine to be able to optimize workloads as you move into the cloud. But many organizations want to be able to have an easy on-ramp to cloud that's basically the most effective and has the least barriers to entry. And that's where Google VMware Engine fits in. This is a complete lift and shift option that allows for the same operational posture, the same technology, and move into a dedicated private cloud solution that is hosted in a Google data center and hosted in Google Cloud's platform. And this is a first-party native capability of Google that allows for the ease of migration and the same operational posture as customers know and love in their VMware environment at home. So next, I'm going to hand it over to Manoj. And Manoj, you're going to talk a little bit more about Google VMware Engine and why it's such a great fit for VMware workloads today.
Yeah, thank you, Wade. Hi, I'm Manoj. I am the lead product management person for VMware as a service in Google Cloud. And formerly, I was VP of products at CloudSimple. It's a company that Google Cloud acquired. And I have spent a lot of my career at VMware as well as at Cisco doing many things related to virtualization and cloud. And happy to be here today to talk about what we are offering in Google Cloud related to VMware. So as Wade mentioned, the problem we are solving for enterprises is, how do I bring my platform and my IT without too much disruption into the cloud, and get cloud transformation without going through a lot of barriers and learning curves. And so we are happy to bring this service to market, which enables customers to essentially bring their VMware platforms as is natively on bare metal, running inside Google Cloud. And it is a full-fledged, like, first-party Google Cloud service experience, which means that not only is the hardware owned by Google, the locations owned by Google, it's operated by Google, but it's well integrated from many standpoints: networking, identities, billing, and so forth, that we'll show shortly, into Google Cloud. And of course, you transact with Google as the single point, and it is fully sold and fully supported as well by Google. Of course, the platform is a native VMware platform, and the offering is fully supported. It's verified and certified and all those things by VMware. So we are doing it in partnership and full collaboration with VMware. So what does the service itself do, and how does it behave? So fundamentally, you consume the VMware platform as a service, which means that you don't have to worry about the hardware aspects and the data center aspects, of course, because this is the cloud. But also, you don't have to worry about the platform itself, like deploying it, patching it, upgrading it. If you want to just get a new VMware private cloud in a region of Google Cloud, you click a button and you get it in a matter of minutes. You can treat it like a cloud resource, meaning that it's a self-service management of the resource. You can expand it and shrink it anytime you like. If there's any issue or failure that happens in the back end, obviously the service operators take care of it for you. The control plane of the service takes care of it. And all underlying infrastructure, storage, networking, compute is managed and is the responsibility of the service. So essentially, you go back to focusing on what matters, which is your workloads, and the operating systems inside the virtual machines and the workloads, and the value you build out of that. And that part doesn't change, right? We're taking away basically the infrastructure hassle and the VMware platform management pains away from you, and letting you focus on the consumption. So as I mentioned, this is not only a native VMware experience, but it's a well-integrated cloud experience. And so how do we make that possible? And what are the elements of that native experience and integrated experience? So this slide kind of gives you sort of a architecture view of that. Essentially, the VMware platform runs, as I mentioned, on bare metal, and this is highly reliable, highly available, high performance infrastructure. The latest components are in terms of Intel CPUs and NVMe devices and redundant TORs and 100 gig networking. You'll see some of the description of the hardware later in another session later on. But it's modern infrastructure and high performance infrastructure compatible with VMware, of course. But you establish connectivity to this environment in the standard ways. So just as you would connect to a VM in Google Cloud using either a VPN device or using interconnect from your on-premises, you would connect to VMware that way as well, right? So it's very seamlessly integrated into the VPC networking model of Google Cloud. It is seamlessly integrated with the consumption experience of Google Cloud. So the same identities that you use to log into Google Cloud is what you use to do lifecycle management of the VMware environment as well. Your billing, of course, of any VMware consumption happens in your Google accounts, Google Cloud accounts, and your access control of who gets to do the lifecycle management versus who gets to access the environment is also done through Google Cloud Permissions. But fundamentally, why would you consume VMware, right? You consume VMware, as we had mentioned, to have operational continuity, right? To have consistency with your existing IT, all the hardening and all the tools and all the processes that you have standardized over the years is what you can bring as is. So there's full support to the VMware ecosystem for the VMware ecosystem, including your backup tools, your DR tools, obviously monitoring, security, F5 for load balancing, and Splunk for logging and so forth, right? So it's a native VMware experience from that standpoint, right? Even your provisioning processes that might happen through ServiceNow and other kind of aspects. But not only do we bring VMware to the public cloud, right, in Google Cloud, but we're also bringing Google Cloud to VMware. And what that means is, when you come to Google Cloud, you don't come just for VMware. You come to Google Cloud for all the innovations, all the other networking and compute and storage services that it has. And we want to make sure that you're able to leverage that in the VMware context. We want to make sure you're able to leverage that for administrative purposes, such as improve your backup, optimize and improve your backup processes if you so want, optimize and improve your operations management processes, and perhaps optimize your data processing workflows. Data coming from operational systems going into BigQuery for data warehousing, for example, is one of the one of the transformations you can achieve. When you think about application modernization, right? You just you don't want to be in VMware when you come to Google Cloud. You, as I mentioned, you want to do let's say microservices-based application development in Kubernetes and containers. You can do that not only in Google Cloud, but also you can in GKE, for example. But you can also do that on VMware using Anthos, VMware running in Google Cloud now, right? And you would do that for various reasons such as performance and privacy, as you'll learn later in more detail. But those kinds of transformative approaches are now possible with this sort of an architecture. And once again, we are bringing VMware to Google Cloud, but we are also bringing the best of Google Cloud and the experience of Google Cloud to VMware. Now, there are existing approaches in the market, as you know, to solve this problem. And this problem of getting your IT, your VMware IT as is into the public cloud. But we believe that what we offer is actually the most compelling way to solve this problem. And how do we, how is that possible? Well, if when you think about consuming the cloud, you don't want to think of VMware running in the cloud as a separate experience. You want it to be, when it comes to support, when it comes to provisioning and identities and billing and access control, you want it to be unified. And so that experience is something that is very unified. You buy from Google, you get the support from Google, and there's nobody else to worry about or deal with. When it comes to the cloud, if you're trying to resolve a networking issue, Google will take care of it for you. When it comes to connectivity, it's the same thing, right? You don't want to set up a silo of networking access plane for VMware and a silo for the rest of Google Cloud. You want it all to be centralized and have a hub for VPN or a hub for your interconnect coming from on-premises and going out to all of the cloud, including VMware. And so the way we have set up the networking model and the seamless VPC peering, is really differentiating from other approaches in the market for a VMware platform in the public cloud.
So, Manoj, are we going to go into a little bit of detail, because that, from a competitive perspective, that is probably one of the most compelling features that competitors have in this space, which is seamless integration of on-premises NSX and public cloud networking?
Yeah, no, yes, we will have more detailed coverage, but just to answer that, uh, yes, on-premises NSX, to the extent NSX does exist on-premises, in the low single digits, it is fully supported as well from the VMware side of the platform. But I think when it comes to the cloud side, you don't want to think of the NSX network separate from the cloud network. You don't want to think of VPC peering as something that's behind is opaque to NSX. You want it to be seamless. In other words, you want to have layer 3 visibility. When you set up a VPC network in the cloud, you should be able to assign that subnet and that VPC to VMware. And I think that's what we are able to achieve directly. Without having to go through two different interfaces. You just go to your VPC subnet management screen or API and assign it to a VMware environment, right? That's what we are able to achieve. The other aspect is when you think of test and dev workflows, and production workflows, those VPC networks in the cloud are separate. And usually, the approach that has been followed in the market is that, okay, take one VPC network and assign it to VMware. But the VMware platform is shared between test dev and production. And so you want both the VPCs, the test and dev VPC and the production VPC, to connect to VMware. So this multi-VPC support is something we've built as well to truly change, to truly make it possible to use it in intended ways, as opposed to artificially separating our VMware platforms into separate VPCs, right? So those are the kinds of innovations we've made on the networking space. Clearly that's more detailed than this high-level slide, but we can talk about that in the next slides or so, right?
Yeah. So in that next level, just if you can make sure you touch on the inverse, bringing that VPC concept on-prem, especially as I adopt technologies such as Anthos on-prem. How do you guys make sure that's a seamless experience? That'd be great.
Yeah. When we talk about Anthos, we'll cover that. But certainly, yes, we are bringing the Istio service mesh of Anthos on-prem as well as to VMware on Google Cloud to kind of simplify the operations view of application development. But coming back to the VMware side, I already covered the fact that you use the same identities and access control and billing, which kind of simplifies your operations management. You don't have to have a separate set of users and billing and roles to manage VMware and a separate one for the rest of the cloud. It's all integrated, and you can centralize your cloud organization in IT around a single model and a single system. And then the integration that we have created, and the first step is through networking, but also through other services with Google Cloud is truly unparalleled. And the way you can seamlessly now bring cloud services into VMware, this service is changing the game on that. And so we'll see actually this last bullet here in much more detail in our third session after the demo, when Manish will cover this in far more detail. Okay.
Manoj, if I could just jump in quickly, when you're talking about the GC identity mapping, I'm just curious, how do you map that against my on-prem identity store? Because I'm obviously going to be using, almost 100% using an Active Directory backend. My administrators will have administrator accounts with specific rights assigned in that VMware hierarchical structure. Yeah. Are we mapping those to GC identities, or is that a transparent switch for the client or the administrator?
Yeah, so I think we do want to make it transparent, and the whole point of doing this is to make sure there's not much disruption in in your first pass at it, right? So clearly, we will support, we do support Active Directory integrations for VMware, directly. So you don't have to change anything, right? So you have layer 3 access to your on-prem using interconnect or cloud VPN, and if you are able to reach your on-prem AD, or if you want to deploy an AD in the cloud, you can do that too with cloud AD support from Google. But the point is, we would not disrupt the Google support, the VMware side of the house when it comes to AD, if you so desire as a customer. But if you would like to, start centralizing your identity management into Google Cloud identities, then we provide you the option to do so. Right?
On the then, does that mean once we're all hooked up, I could use my Google Identity Store to manage my on-prem vCenter?
Stay tuned on that. So not as part of this service offering, right? Right now we are focused on how you centrally manage your identities with Google services, including the VMware side. But that is a direction we are certainly considering, and and definitely when it comes to identity management, whether you do it from on-prem or whether you do it in the cloud, there needs to be a simplification and unification. So Google Cloud is definitely on that path, but not as part of this offering.
Manoj, I have a question about support. So I understand that the service is sold and supported completely by Google Cloud, and that's perfectly fine if we focus on the cloud side of operations. But this creates a boundary, in my opinion, between the on-premises and the cloud implementation. If, for example, there is an issue that spans across the environments, the two environments, how would you be able to deal with this and coordinate with support from VMware in the on-premises environment?
Yeah, great question. So I think keep in mind when we talk about spanning an issue spanning, there are three areas that you need to consider. VMware, the rest VMware in the Google Cloud, and the rest of Google Cloud, right? And so VMware on-premises, if an issue spans from on-premises to the cloud, your teams that are managing VMware would need to be involved, right? As well as your networking teams would need to be involved. But I think a very important part of the picture is networking that spans, for example, between Google Cloud Native and the VMware running on Google Cloud. So if you're trying to use an interconnect to reach VMware that's landing on Google Cloud VPCs, you don't want to be shuttled between two different companies to say, okay, it's not our problem, it's their problem, and vice versa, right? So what we're saying is we're taking full responsibility to resolve any issue you face on Google Cloud, whether that issue appears on VMware or it appears on Google Cloud. And if it is, we'll triage that, right? And if it's a network issue that we are responsible for, we'll fix it. But if it does require VMware to be brought in, we take the responsibility to bring in VMware on the Google Cloud side and resolve the issue automatically for you. We'll take care of passing the issue to them. We'll take care of them, debugging it, and we'll apply the fixes as needed. So no need to get involved with another vendor when it comes to dealing with the cloud. That's the problem we're solving. So in terms of the use cases that this service is able to solve for you, I want to just summarize it in this slide and kind of cover the major topics. I mean, there are many other use cases, but these would be the key ones. So the first thing is that, as a CIO or, as a cloud transformation sort of project, you're looking, many companies are looking to get away from their data centers. As Wade had described, Gartner saying 80% of data centers will not be owned anymore by enterprises. So you would want to, get away from your, shut down your data centers because your lease is up for renewal, or your hardware is up for a refresh, or your license is up for a refresh. Or you might have more of a tactical problem, which is that you're running out of capacity. Or you might be, you haven't planned enough for a project that happened in the middle of the year, and you are looking for more capacity that your existing data centers cannot handle. In those kinds of scenarios, it would be nice to have an easy button which says, okay, just give me a new VMware private cloud, and let me get my capacity in an instant. Well, it's not possible on premises today. As we know, it takes weeks to months to actually land new capacity for VMware, especially if it's unplanned in advance. And so, but what we're saying is we're changing the game on that, and we'll make it instant for you in the public cloud, right? Same thing for disaster recovery. I mean, oftentimes companies pay a lot of money for buying a new data center for disaster recovery. There's leases that you have to sign, and it's quite complex to manage the networking and the capacity and make it cost effective. Just to provide high availability for high value applications, you have to often pay millions of dollars. What we are saying is you don't have to do that in physical data centers anymore. If you would like to do DR, either from on-premises to the cloud or between clouds even, obviously you can use the VMware platform and its strength in this space to create that level of application protection for you at a very reasonable cost, right? No need to have a upfront payment of millions of dollars and sign leases for many years in order to get a DR site. I think there is a missing link in the public cloud that this service is trying to actually replace, which is that in the public cloud there is a shared everything multi-tenant view of the entire infrastructure, and oftentimes that has performance implications, obviously, as you might have noisy neighbors and those kinds of things. Oftentimes there is a privacy issue with that, like your audit and compliance practices cannot really handle that really well, and it's a big pain point for customers. And what we believe is that this architecture gives you kind of a private cloud view inside a public cloud. And it comes with the benefits of that. It comes with, dedicated, isolated, hardware that remains, with you for the lifetime of your subscription. It's not shared with any other tenant. And that gives you not only better privacy, but also much better performance that you can, predictable performance and no oversubscription and the networking kind of performance with high-end hardware, and that makes it a good fit for getting the extreme performance for your most demanding workloads like databases or VDI, and offer analytics and warehousing that runs more frequently than once a month or something, right? So those are the kinds of scenarios that we believe we unlock. And this goes over and above the VMware platform itself, right? All I just described was about getting a private island in a public cloud for performance and privacy purposes, which applies to containers equally well, right? It applies to modern data pipelines equally well. So we believe those sorts of capabilities are now possible in this platform. And then I think, as I mentioned, you're not just landing on VMware, right? You want to take full advantage of the public cloud, and so our platform makes application modernization, DevOps possible. You might want to take a web application, put it partially in the public cloud, partially keep the database, for example, on VMware. Or you might take a containerized application and put it on VMware because of this private and high performance nature, and kind of get a new dimension of application development. So I think these are the kind of scenarios we are enabling. Clearly not all of them, but it kind of gives you a new kind of capability and dimension that didn't exist in public cloud before. I think I'm just going to cover networking topics. So what I'd like to do is, if there are any specific questions on a topic, then I'll probably spend a couple of minutes on that. There was a question that came up on networking, and so this is a deeper view on that. If you'd like to cover this, I will. Otherwise, I can cover any other topic if there are questions.
I guess the one question I had concerning the notion of VPCs, you were saying that you configure them from the Google section. Does that automatically create associated NSX connectors or edge points or whatever you need to make that happen from a single interface?
Yes. So yes, in fact, when you allocate a subnet in VPC to the VMware service, then what you can do is essentially go ahead and create a VMware private cloud that either takes the entire subnet that you allocated, or a portion of it, in order for you to create multiple private clouds within that subnet. So, but once you create that private cloud, the full layer 3 visibility within that subnet, as well as to other subnets in that VPC, is automatically established. And you can do that not only from the home VPC, right? Not only from the VPC which you assigned to the VMware side, but you can do that from other VPCs and kind of have this mesh view across, a dev test project and a prod project that run on the same VMware platform. Because clearly, when we create VMware clusters, we're creating cloud, an entire cloud, and test and dev obviously would either share the same cluster or live in different clusters, but in the same vCenter context, and we make that possible.
So I can see the advantage of doing that automatically for simple environments, but as customers' VMware infrastructure grows within this environment and it becomes more complex and there's more complex routing, how do you guys share routes in between the VPCs in that kind of hybrid environment?
Yeah, so great question. So while it's simplistic to begin with, and it works for majority of the cases, the platform, the Google Cloud Platform and the VPC networking, as well as the VMware platform and the NSXT capabilities, are at your fingertips in this context. So when you're creating overlay subnets in VMware on NSXT, you can use route table management, microsegmentation, and all the advanced, the BGP peering, and the devices, the network devices that NSXT supports. You can bring them to bear for managing the overlay networks of your VMware workloads. On the VPC side, that's also a very rich and very capable networking, software-defined networking stack, the Google Cloud networking stack, and essentially that also supports the ability to create route tables, firewall rules, VPN devices, have microsegmentation like capabilities. Obviously, the constructs are different. So essentially, the power of both these networking platforms is now available to you at your fingertips. NSXT on the VMware side and Google Cloud on the VPC side, Google Cloud Networking on the VPC side.
So in competitive solutions, I would just share BGP routes between the two environments so that I can have proper routing. Is that also a concept here? Because you guys are kind of mixing the concept of VPCs, which are internal to my entire network within Google, and then I'm carving out a part of that VPC for VMware. But if I need to route in between the two environments, I need some type of edge solution, and that's the part I'm not getting.
Yeah. So the NSXT network, right, has an edge device, right? Think of that edge device as a BGP peer to a virtual routing function that lives on your VPC, right? A BGP peer to an edge routing function on your VPC. So essentially, there is BGP peering when it comes to your overlay to the rest of the VPC network. And obviously, you can control the VPC route visibility as well between the two. Indeed, it does work, through BGP peering.
Okay, I got it. So as a BGP is the routing protocol between the two environments.
Yes. The visibility exists by default, but yeah, the routes are exchanged via BGP.
Question I have is in the Google VMware Engine, I see it's like a little box there. Do we have control or choice as to what type of storage or CPUs or type of servers we have that would be then underneath the covers become the dependency for the VMs themselves, right? Because normally it would be, hey, we pick a VM, we pick which size we want it to be, and we kind of roll with that. But I'm wondering, do we have any selection? It looks like I'm seeing it on screen now as far as what we end up with there. Perfect, thank you.
Yeah, so you buy the service on the basis of hyperconverged nodes, and you build out your own cloud, your VMware private cloud, on the basis of those nodes. And then on top of that, clearly, it's your cloud, so you can put one VM per node if you want, if you like, if it's a database, for example, or 100 VMs per node or more if you want to set up a test and dev sort of scenario. So that's up to the number of VMs, and the sizes of the VMs is exactly the way you deal with it on-prem. So if you're using a t-shirt size portfolio of applications, that you would bring it as is and continue it as is. If you want to change it, that's up to you as well, right? But what we are selling is nodes, and so we are offering a node type. It's pretty powerful node type, built with the most advanced, most recent sort of components from the market. Cascade Lake Intel CPU with high powered. We have 3/4 of a terabyte of RAM, and we have a lot of storage, like nearly 20 terabytes of storage. This is before dedupe and compression and the redundancy. And so with dedupe, compression, and redundancy, and erasure coding, even with a high failure tolerance level of FTT2, you can get nearly 30 terabytes of storage per node. It's a hyperconverged design, so in fact, storage does expand with compute. But as you will see later, we do have options to bring additional storage, external storage, in case you want to just expand storage independently. And then the networking is really strong, truly a redundant networking with high levels of availability, and it gives you 100 gigs of east-west throughput. And this throughput is not oversubscribed, right? So it's truly a dedicated on-premise, enterprise-grade VMware experience.
Manoj, I have a question about licensing. I'm seeing from this slide that you are using nodes with 36 cores per socket, while VMware just launched a reform of their licensing model that goes that basically if you have more than 32 cores per socket, you're going to pay for 2 licenses. So in this case, you will have to pay for 4 licenses per host. Are you going to absorb this so that in a way so that the customer don't feel this CPU tax, license tax?
Yeah, great question. So just to reiterate, what VMware did was with beyond 32 nodes, they changed the licensing model. As you know, most customers are going towards denser capacity, going with more cores per node, and the way VMware has changed the licensing does impact the higher end configurations quite a bit, because you have to buy more licenses. The good news for our service is that all VMware licensing is included. So when you're buying nodes, you don't have to worry about installing VMware licenses separately, right? You say, hey, give me a VMware cloud on 3 nodes, 4 nodes, 16 nodes, and the system makes it available for you. And all you pay is a flat fee, right? All the data center, all the storage, all the networking, all VMware, all VPC peering, all control plane management, identity, all of that is fully included and as part of the service. So there's no additional cost to pay.
How many locations are we talking about, as in server farms, is this going to be in?
How many, are you talking about regional availability worldwide, or?
Regional, worldwide, and replication, all that other good stuff.
Yeah, so our plans are to be available worldwide in Americas, Europe, and Asia Pacific around the time we go GA. And we would make sure that in each geography there are at least 2 regions. For example, in the US, we would provide at least East US and West US at the very least, right? So you can do DR between the 2. And so we are going with a very, I think of all the provider launches for VMware, we are going with the largest footprint worldwide. So it's a very significant investment and commitment from Google's behalf on this service.
I just had two questions real quick. One, I just wanted to confirm, and I think Chris may have had this question as well. Is 3 nodes the minimum for the agreement?
Yeah. So in order to support production workloads, we do and provide SLAs for our offering. We do require that a minimum of 3 nodes are deployed, and that some level, redundancy controls are set on storage and HA. Because otherwise, if you're going with lower, then a single node coming down can mean complete data loss and complete application loss. Right?
And okay, cool. And for my second question, can you explain what the responsibility looks like shared with the customer, as far as, one of the beautiful parts of these platforms and the competitive platforms are that the customer doesn't have to manage the hardware anymore, but somebody does, and that involves a patching and update process and firmware upgrades and all that nonsense that many of us have gone through many times. What type of control does the customer have over that process so that they can ensure compatibility with all their third-party integrations or backup utilities, et cetera?
Right. So, fantastic question. So I think there's 2 parts to the equation: the VMware platform and the rest of the underlying infrastructure. Right. So when it comes to the underlying infrastructure, all the networking and all the control plane that you don't directly see and manage, Google's taking care of making that highly available and redundant, so that any upgrades, any firmware patches that happen in the switch and the Tor and the spine or the edge device or the VPN device, or all of that is completely transparent to you, right? And as it should be for any cloud service. But when it comes to the VMware side, there's 2 parts to the equation. When there's a failure that happens on the VMware platform, the system and the service will ensure that the failure is detected and it's automatically remediated. And so a failed device or a failed node that's not recoverable will be replaced for you automatically without you having to do anything. When it comes to applying upgrades and patches for the VMware platform itself, that's a responsibility of the service. And what that means is that, for example, when a patch is being applied or upgrade is happening, we want to make it very, the least disruptive for the customer as possible, which means that, for example, an upgrade or patch, we will add a node to the cluster for free and ensure that you don't lose the compute availability, and then, change the software bits of the previous node and then bring it back. Right. So that way, you don't lose that capacity when the upgrade is happening. Now, when it comes to compatibility and especially major version upgrades that can cause a little bit of heartburn, we do provide enough updates. Prior notification. Sort of a heads up. We are shooting to provide 3 months of heads up of a platform change that will require a major version upgrade. VMware has taken the responsibility to kind of make sure that these version upgrades are backward and forward compatible. At least they'll try to make sure that they can be backward and forwards compatible in their future upgrades to the VMware platform itself. But to the extent that doesn't happen, we will provide advanced notification, and we'll work with the vendor ecosystem for all the common vendors to make sure their customers are aware of any upcoming changes. Usually a 3-month window is sufficient for a vendor to respond.